In today's rapidly changing environment where traditional trips to the store are just no longer conducive or even convenient, people are inevitably doing a lot more groceries online. I mean, I certainly am. So in a pure
Yeah.
B2C environment, and that too one representing either a daily or weekly task for every family or for every person in any city, what is a typical customer journey, and how do you define loyalty and retention strategies to ensure you have recurring business from your customers? And especially now, since everyone seems to have jumped onto the online grocery delivery bandwagon.
Thank you so much. Thank you for the invitation. Good to be here. And I mean, in our case, I mean, the audience is quite large. So we are operating in the UAE at this stage only. And for us, the audience is the entire population. So it's a pretty big audience. So maybe different than some B2B customers, our reach needs to be national, let's say. So for us, there's two critical aspects, which is awareness campaigns and really strong, robust SEO strategies, because people need to know the brand. So awareness is quite critical, then we can drive interest from the brand at the same time. So when we start then the acquisition of our users, then it's important that they know somehow the brand and somehow visible and present in their minds. And looking at online groceries, because it's such a low penetration segment at this stage, even after COVID, we still have a lot of room to play. Comparing UAE with other markets like maybe China, where 20 to 30% of the sales are online through groceries. Meanwhile, we were below 1% and now we are looking at 10%. Still, there's a lot of room for us to grow. And I mean, we have been operating in a model where we need on that specific funnel of interest, consideration, and acquiring those users, we need to be a bit experimental. We need to try different messages, especially in the UAE, because we are a very segmented country with different population, different nationalities. So some things will work with some other things will work differently with other groups. So that A/B testing for us is quite important, so we can acquire more users into the platform. Then the second aspect in terms of our consumer funnel, which is quite critical, is the purchase, is the transactions that happen within that acquisition. So it needs to have a very simple path to purchase. So from onboarding to checkout, it needs to be very smooth, very simple, and very intuitive, because I mean, it's not the same as I was working before in a dealers group selling Reebok, so making the strategy for the region. And when someone goes online to buy shoes, it's maybe one or two pairs of shoes. But in our industry is 20, 30, 40, or even more items within the basket. So we have 80,000 different products within our app, and we need to make sure that users spend the less amount of time finding their products. So search, navigation, optimization of all the menus and the features to find really quick what they need is quite critical. So that time where they spend within the app is very critical, needs to be smooth, intuitive, so people come back for the second and third time. In terms of loyalty and retention, I mean, in the last couple of months, we have had enormous success in terms of downloads, in terms of new users, in terms of basket size as well. So we had 3 times, 4 times more orders. The basket size increased 5 times to 6 times, and the downloads increased by 10 times if we compare to previous COVID. So for us, the last 2 months have been very important in terms of retention and loyalty, and making sure that we keep those users with us. Because, I mean, they came very organically, and the focus on the last couple of months was make sure that we find specific triggers for them to come back, for them to buy one more time, for them to buy additional baskets, for them to buy from different retailers. So we have been onboarding another 20 or 30 different retail brands like Marks and Spencer, Italy, and Bread & Co, and many more. So we want to make sure that they continue to drive their purchases on the supermarket environment, but also experiment with different specialty stores, which have been very successful, the onboarding the last couple of months. And lastly, just how do we define loyalty and retention, which is, I mean, is quite important for us. It's all about retention versus what they did previously. And because it's groceries, you need it every week, every month. So we kind of compare if they purchased last week, they purchase in this week. So there's a specific KPI there. We also measure the ones that bought us like 1 month ago, 2 and 3 months ago to also buy us. Now we have a specific retargeting strategies to achieve and to reach those users. So the whole idea is what we call on an L shape, getting more orders from 1 to 2, 2 to 3, 3 to 4, for them to become trialist, medium user, and super user. And also at the same time, the L shape, so they can try other retailers. So it's not only about buying the supermarkets from Union Coop or Grandiose, but also to buy from different retailers. So those KPIs are quite critical and are part of the overall strategy that we set up for our business.
Wow, that's brilliant. Thank you, Xavi, for that really intense insight. I would imagine that you're probably looking at predictive analysis now, to try and
Exactly.
kind of like tell people what they should be buying, kind of driving their.
I mean, the beauty of our system is we have a lot of data that we can rely now.
Yeah.
So and we have tons of different systems where we can analyze the data and then send to, we have a few partners that are working with us on retargeting. So we retarget those users that previously bought specific products, but they stopped buying. So we kind of remind them to complete the basket, that you forgot to buy the bananas that you buy every single week, or maybe understanding behaviors of specific clusters, and then target if they interact with different categories at the same time. So we create lookalike audiences and target them with specific messaging and trigger that additional purchases.
Very exciting. Okay, thank you so much. All right, Sandeep, let's jump to your side of expertise. The banking industry. Now, this particular industry has a very strong non-digital legacy. And quite quickly, we've seen a dramatic change from many of our key regional banks across the Middle East and Africa region, where we have seen some really interesting tactics, honestly, that some local banks have taken to make topics like fraud interesting for the layman. And also in the case of Africa, bringing banks and their services to people rather than vice versa. Could you give us some insights into how your organization has made the foray into this digital world? And how do you drive acquisition in this new and extremely competitive digital banking landscape?
Sure. Thanks, Firdaus. You're absolutely right. Banks have traditionally been behemoths with, encumbered with legacy systems and cumbersome processes. Everything needs to be signed in triplicate and approved by credit and risk and compliance. And even then, I might still not give you what you really want. And obviously with very, very, very strong regulatory constraints, and which are necessary in some cases, but not necessarily in all cases. CBD2 has been sort of, we've started that way. I mean, we actually are a bank that's been around for a fair number of years. We just turned 50 last year. I mean, a fairly significant milestone in the country. And we've started off very strongly as a corporate and commercial bank. Our foray into retail was probably we were a late entrant into the retail space. We probably were just about a decade or so back that we got into the retail space, and probably more seriously only in the last 5 years or so. But we were very clear, I mean, given the extremely competitive and sort of crowded banking sort of space that we have here in the UAE. I mean, we've got close to 50 plus banks, probably a few less now after the mergers, but still, I mean, at least 40 plus banks, and for a population of about 9 to 10 million, it is a very small, it's a very small pie that everybody's trying to get into. So we were clear that we wanted to be different from the rest, and we didn't really want to go out and compete on a price perspective, but we wanted to compete on the service aspect and on the digital aspect. And I'm sorry, I'm getting an Amazon guy who's trying to bug me to try and pick up something while we are doing this. I'm terribly sorry, but yeah. So we were talking about how we started off our journey differently, and we were clear that digital would be our key differentiator. In fact, in 2017, we were the first in the UAE to actually launch a digital-only bank. CBD now, we were the first bank in the UAE to actually launch a pure digital bank. But we quickly realized that we didn't have the budgets, the deep budgets that some of our competitor banks have, and B, we didn't really want to give a differentiated proposition for digital as being separate from the rest of the bank, because I mean, we wanted CBD to stand for default digital, and we wanted to offer the entire range of banking products and services that we have on the digital platform. And again, what sometimes tends to happen with banks is that we end up having a very nice front end in terms of an app and a UI UX, but the back end is still the forms in triplicate and the processes that happen. So the whole straight through processing, the STP, doesn't really happen. And we were clear that we wanted to try and make sure that we actually walk the talk and make sure that it is really digital from end to end. And I'm sort of happy to let you know, I mean, we just launched a digital only account just a couple of weeks back, which is fairly unique in the fact that it is actually allows you to open up an account in just about 10 clicks in less than 3 minutes. And all you need is your Emirates ID. There is no forms that you need to sign. There is no complicated paperwork that you need to fill up. It's just asking you for your Emirates ID that you get in, and you get an instant account that's opened on the spot. The physical card obviously comes delivered to you a day or two later, but you have your account, you've got your IBAN, and you can actually transact. We've extended that across to also a Digi credit card, which again is fairly unique because again, credit cards require a huge amount of iterations in terms of approvals and so on and so forth. But we managed to actually do that again all digitally. So you can now apply for a credit card. I can get your bureau score pulled while you're doing the application process. I can actually also do my own internal app score and be able to approve you and give you a limit and issue a virtual credit card on the spot. Again, like I said, the physical card comes to you, so the virtual credit card will have a smaller limit, but then you can actually go out and transact and use it. And then, I mean, a day later, you get the actual physical plastic and with the full limit, and then you go out and use it. So these are some new sort of fairly, and again, this is the way to go. Customers are used to everything instant. You need it on the spot. You can't wait for something and wait for 3 days for it to come to you. You want it on the spot. So that's something that we've done. We've also enhanced a huge number of services, which typically used to always needed you to go to the branch, fill up forms and so on and so forth, whether it's things like, loan top-ups, whether it's balance transfers, quick cash, reward tracking, all those things we've all digitized. In fact, one of the things that we've done very which again is fairly unique is on the rewards platform where we have a cashback product called Super Saver, which gives you cashback and gives you cashback across 4 key categories, one of them being groceries like our friend Javi's. So we give customers up to 10% cashback on all groceries. We give it on utility bills, on education spends, and on fuel. And the beauty of the product is that, again, unlike typical most of these reward programs, you really, as a customer, you don't really know where you got those reward points. You get a statement at the end of the month. You look at it and you say, okay, I got something, but I don't really know what gave me the delta and what didn't. I mean, you just get something at the end of the day, you say, okay, fine, I'm happy with what I got. Our app actually tracks for you on a day-to-day basis exactly where you are across these 4 categories, how far off you are from the targets, how much you've earned, what you need to get to the next level. So it's out there. It's all there, transparent, and it's very clear for customers to actually understand and utilize this. We've also, last year, actually, end of December, we launched a product called CBD1, which was again a fairly unique product. We've sort of again tried to aimed at young millennials. We said, let's try and do something what millennials sort of identify themselves with, which is things like your Spotify or your Amazon Prime kind of. It's a subscription-based credit card. So it's a card that completely powered by you. You choose your design, you choose your packages, you choose your pricing, and you choose the benefits. You can pause the plan at any point in time. You can upgrade to next level. You can cancel it at any point in time. And you pay on a monthly basis. The response to that, again, has been very, very, very good. So it's actually helped drive numbers significantly. Coming to your point in terms of how do we really drive acquisition? And again, I mean, banks are no different from other companies. Digital is the way to go. I mean, we've been investing significantly in terms of digital advertising. And within that, social is one of the key sort of channels that we do. Search is a slightly funny channel out here in the UAE. And again, while search has its merits, it also has its demerits, especially in the UAE because of the crowded space that we are in. I mean, and again, I'll just give that as an example. typically because we are so overbanked, everybody has at least, I mean, when you do a random poll on the street, I'm sure anybody can rattle off at least 10 bank names without even blinking an eye. And therefore, again, coming to search, I mean, if somebody is likely searching for the best credit card in the UAE, it usually actually works as a flag rather than actually as a potential lead. And the reason being that typically the customer would be a guy who would have actually gone to his particular bank, being turned down, gone to a few other banks, being turned down, and now is actually now in the market looking for a credit card, and therefore highly likely to get turned down by us and by most of the banks. So that's an interesting perspective on search. But having said that, acquisition still is key. I mean, we are still in the retail space, we are still a small player. We've got aspirations to grow. We don't want to be the biggest bank in the market, but we do want to be one of the best, and we want to make sure that we get quality clients.
Well, that's a great way of looking at search, right? I've never looked at it from the opposite end perspective. So, you typically have the journey that somebody is searching for you, and then you want to pick that customer up and you want to nurture them, but maybe you don't want to as well. That's a very interesting insight, actually. Okay, Xavi and Sandeep, let's get a bit more granular and talk about multi-channel experiences. So how does a seamless multi-channel experience make or break the customer journey? And particularly, how does mobile play a role in the overall experience you try to give to your customer? So Xavi, do you want to go first?
Yeah. Well, in our case, we are 100% mobile, almost. So, I mean, we started with our app 5 years ago, and we have been very app driven since then. So most of our campaigns, most of our engagement is run through mobile. So if we look at the different competitors within the industry now, so some are only web, others are omnipresent. In our case, in our market in our segment is quite interesting because it's a marketplace. So we have our partners, which they have their own retail. We have our partners as well with their own websites as well. So the likes of Union Corp or Marks and Spencer's or Del Monte, they have their own websites and their own delivery system, and then they work with us as well. So we kind of complement everything that is happening. I mean, retail business is huge. It's almost 30 billion here in the UAE only, not to talk about 100 plus in the GCC. So there's space for everyone. So in our case, it's app driven. 95% of the transactions is app based. So only 5% is actually web. We have the web when we have like a very light user experience on the web, because we want to drive consumers to go to our app. So even in COVID, we had like thousands of new users that they went to search and actually type grocery and supermarket near me and online supermarket, and we were one of the first ones that were on the ranking, because we have done a really good job in terms of engaging with industry leaders and SEO and making sure that our rankings are quite robust. So a lot of people, they found El Grocer, they went to the online page if they were working from the and searching from the desktop, because from home with COVID, people were using a lot their desktops and laptops from work. So, but what we want is for them to have just the first experience, and then we drive them to mobile, because on mobile is where we have the full potential. So it's much simpler to navigate through the products and the different categories. We have a very strong direct marketing internal solutions as well, where we target them with push notifications, with emails and SMS as well, segmenting the users depending on the behaviors, on the nationality, on the regions. So on the behaviors in the last couple of months, what type of products that they order as well. So it's much better to get that segmentation done when they go through mobile. And at the same time, so everything that we do, even with partners as well. So one of the big trends in the last couple of weeks was brands have been shifting their budgets instead of just driving budgets through what we call ATL, TV advertising, outdoor. So there was a big shift in terms of their budget. So if companies were spending, let's say 80% in traditional media and 20% on e-com, in some cases even flipped around and they were spending 80% on e-com. So when they came to us, we said, we have solutions to give you, of course, internally, but also the dollars that they were spending on media also change as well. So instead of just driving awareness campaigns and CPMs, what they were looking is also conversion, making sure that they drive traffic to specific platforms, and in our case, directly from a mobile experience to our app, directly to their brand page, or directly to the promotion that they were driving on the Facebook, Instagram environment, or even outside on the open web. So driving that traffic to the web, to the app through our deep links. So there's a lot of work that external companies that have been doing to make sure that we generate traffic directly from an outside environment directly to specific events within our app. So that has been a lot of work that has been done there. And I mean, all our acquisition strategies and everything that we have been doing is mostly about getting that installed. And at the same time, instead of measuring the cost per install, which we stopped doing that, we measure the CPO, the cost per order, which is really critical for us. So we want them to download, making sure that they convert and place the first order. So that's the work, and increasing those conversion numbers is really the effort we have been doing until now. Okay, brilliant. Sandeep, do you have a point of view?
Yep. I mean, so for us, I mean, while it's important, I mean, I sort of tend to agree with Xavi on this. I mean, we've also used mobile as it's been a mobile first sort of approach very clearly that CBD has been adopting. But having said that, I mean, it's important to sort of offer an omni-channel experience. So, I mean, we do have a fair number of users using the desktop, walking into our branches and using our other sort of point of sale, I mean, ATM machines and so on and so forth. But it's been very clearly mobile focused. I mean, more and more sort of our consumers are engaging us on the mobile. And that's, you know, I mean, the mobile has become ubiquitous. I mean, you smartphone penetration, mobile subscription, I mean, UAE is again topping the world in terms of those statistics, right? I mean, 90+ smartphone penetration out here, more than 200% sort of mobile subscription. These are all sort of numbers. I mean, that's the right direction to go with. And which is what, again, I mean, even in terms of our user journeys and in terms of new products, for example, the entire Digi account that I spoke about earlier, I mean, our onboarding is actually only through the mobile. So we sort of consciously diverting customers to say, all you need to do is just have a smartphone and your Emirates ID, and you can actually get an account or a credit card on the spot. You don't need to be on the website or log into online banking. So in many ways, we actually neglected our website and focused and put more of our resources in terms of on the mobile. And again, it's not just a question of just using it from an onboarding perspective, but it's also the entire journey. I mean, in terms of our services, I mean, we can do anything and everything that you could do in the branch now pretty much on the mobile, whether it's card blocking, whether it's, you know, travel notification, you're flying out and you suddenly realize that you didn't inform the bank that you're going to go travel outside and your credit card will get blocked. The mobile is handy. So all you need to just press a button and that's it. Apply for a supplementary credit card, change limits, whatever else. I mean, these are all very, very, very easy to do. And again, in terms of engagement, I mean, you know, you can do so much more in terms of saying push notifications, making sure that I can drive, I can take a look at what customers are actually doing and be able to give relevant and targeted communication so that I can drive specific behavior as opposed to sort of a slightly more bland spray and pray kind of approach. So as in more and more segmentation, more and more personalization that's happening, it just helps drive better revenue, better engagement, and better sort of bottom line for the bank.
Absolutely. Okay, good. That's a great segue for the next question for you, Xavi. So could you share your strategies on growth and acquisition of new customers? So let's talk about competition, right? And we've talked about it before, we've alluded towards it, but the competition is really rife in the industry that you particularly are in. And that has been massively exacerbated by the environment we're now in. So how do you focus on growth and acquisition? Of course, we talked about retention earlier, but can you give us some insights into that front?
Yeah, it's true that the competition is increasing. And I mean, if you go now to your Facebook, Instagram, you find like 10 different ads from different online grocery platforms, all offering same-day delivery, next 30 minutes delivery, 60 minutes delivery, promotions, 20% off, 20 dirhams so like everyone is like in the same space. And I think one of the learnings that we took in the last couple of weeks, because it's very different than pre-COVID. Pre-COVID, we were just a few. Now we are 10 of them. So, I mean, we have divert somehow our budget to different kind of platforms, not just relying on Facebook or Instagram. That was one of the things that we have done. Looking at open web and try to go to less saturated environments. So that's one. And secondly is, I mean, especially in the UAE, Dubai, very different than Abu Dhabi, Alain, Fujairah. So, I mean, we have to go into each of the markets and each of the retailers as well, and see what works best. In some cases, even the typical flyer printing, delivering to the mailbox or handed, of course, in the first few weeks of COVID, not possible, but because of hygiene measures, and it was completely forbidden all across. But in some cases, it works even better, and it clicks really well with specific target groups. So traditional media sometimes is used, a lot of direct channels as well, SMS and emails work quite well, and then expanding that visibility, of course, with digital marketing, and there's tons of different other platforms, and like Criteo, which we have been using as well a lot. So what we have been doing is understanding our audiences much better, and then with other partners like Criteo or others, give them the access of that information so they can, with the algorithm, try to find lookalikes and people that will convert much better. Because getting installs is quite easy, it's quite cheap, but at the end we want people to actually place an order, and that's that CPO that I mentioned before, cost per order, is really what we measure. And on every dollar that we spend in terms of acquisition. So using different strategies depending on the audience is something that we have been doing lately. Yeah.
Okay, brilliant. All right, so let's go to Sandeep. How do you define engaged versus non-engaged customers? What social or digital channels do you focus on? I mean, Xavi spoke about how they're diversifying, and how do you monetize an engaged customer? What is that magic formula?
So again, I mean, like Xavi mentioned, I mean, even for banks, I mean, it's not just enough for us to have you download the app. I mean, or just open an account. For us, I mean, it makes more sense only if you start using it. So starting, I mean, for us, it's the first step is actually making sure that you activate your card. There are quite a large number of people who apply for a credit card and then don't just bother activating it, just leaving it in their pockets and not doing it. So obviously making sure that the onboarding journey is smooth, B, then making sure that you activate your card and then start spending. It's making sure that we give you the right offers, make sure we give you and then get into the whole cross-sell and upsell sort of proposition, because again, it's not just enough for us to have one card. I mean, we look at an entire customer lifetime value, look at seeing how can we actually make sure that we service the needs of the customer across his entire journey. And again, it's statistically proven, things like rewards and redemption. It's proven that, I mean, a customer only once he starts redeeming a reward, his appetite for acquiring rewards increases phenomenally. I mean, those Emirates Skywards miles that you have, which you've never used before, would still lie there. But the moment you actually redeem it for a flight, you see, hang on a second, that really worked. I mean, how do I go and get more? So these are again things that we do. We do a lot of digital drives in terms of trying to get people to put our card on file, for example. And again, El Grocer, digital, I mean, things like groceries, Zomato, I mean, Uber. We've found, I mean, the moment you put a card on file, purchase becomes much easier. I mean, you start using card far more regularly. Setting up auto payments for utility bills, for example. Your tokenization, Samsung Pay, Google Pay, Apple Pay is just coming in for us. We'll be launching it in a month. We'll have that again as well. These are all easy kills. And again, it's habit forming. I mean, I don't need to then hard sell it to you. It's by default. You just swipe it and then it goes through. So we do a lot of these. We do a lot of spend campaigns again. So again, we look at customer base and see, okay, which are the segments that have been not spending as much? How do we actually get them to actually spend more? So we start giving them. We ran a very successful campaign last year where we gave away the latest iPhone XS at that point in time for a significant uplift in terms of spends. And we were pleasantly surprised to see, this is pre-COVID days, obviously, the people happily came in because there's no draws, no lucky chances or whatever else. It is a guaranteed product all you had to do was spend X. People bought into that. So again, so those are again good incentives to help you drive that. From a channel social media communication perspective, again, we do use the traditional ones. Facebook, Insta tend to be the key driver ones. We've also experimented with things like Snapchat and actually had good success with that, with CBD1, which was more targeted at millennials. We've used that quite well. LinkedIn tends to be a little bit more corporate in nature, so we use that more from a bank communication perspective rather than from a product push perspective. But Facebook and Insta are the ones that are sort of helping us deliver sort of our numbers from a social spend perspective.
Okay, brilliant. All right, so in closing, can I ask you both a short, crisp answer? How do you define success for yourselves and your teams, for your organization, and certainly for your customer? Zavi, you want to go first?
Yeah, for me, it's simple. It's loyalty of our users and make sure that we get really good reviews. And that's what the team around, from operations, from customer service, and our catalog team, tech team, are looking for. Smooth experience, easy to use, and that's how we are building our business, because we want to make sure people completely forget about going to the supermarket, and for that they need to rely on a very accurate and quality.
Okay, brilliant. Sandeep?
So for us, I mean, we are a bank. So our success metrics, and we've got stakeholders and shareholders that we are liable to. And so therefore our success metric is really in terms of delivering shareholder value. And that shareholder is not just customers, but also all our key stakeholders. But from a customer perspective, I mean, success really is in terms of the key customer engagement metrics, making sure that, I mean, our net promoter scores, our customer satisfaction scores, those are sort of consistently high, and that we continue to listen to our customers' needs and help deliver their financial objectives. I mean, helping them achieve their financial goals is of our paramount importance. I mean, we are a 50-year-old bank. We want to be here for the next 50, if not longer. We're not here for the short term, but just try and get a quick buck and then have you forget us. I mean, we want to be there with you through your entire journey.
Okay, brilliant. Well, thank you both very much for those incredible insights and thought-provoking perspectives. I'm sure everyone on this session has taken away incredible and very valuable knowledge from both of you and from your learnings and experiences. If there's any questions, I don't know if we have time for